Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Steve Sterling with Sentinel 17 Gaming. Thank you so much for checking out my channel. Thanks for checking out this video. If you do enjoy this video, please feel free to give it a like. Also, feel free to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so you can be notified when I upload new content. Now, today, I am talking about Resident Evil 3, the remake that just came out. Now, Resident Evil 3 Remake is just like Resident Evil 2 remakes in the fact that it's remaking a PlayStation 1 game that came out over 20 years ago. Now, for those of you that remember from last year, Resident Evil 2 Remake, of course, came out in 2019, but the original Resident Evil 2 came out in 1998. Now, the original Resident Evil 3 came out in 1999, and the Resident Evil 3 Remake, of course, came out this year in 2020. Now, this game is not without its controversies. One of those controversies being one of the classic costumes that players can fit their characters with. In this case, Jill's classic costume. Now, in the original Resident Evil 3, of course, she was wearing a skirt. In this one, they changed it to shorts. Whenever you play the game, you're going to see that the different situations she gets in, it would be extremely impossible from an animation standpoint for them to do anything but shorts. So it makes more sense in that aspect. One of the biggest complaints about Resident Evil 3 is that they've cut content in this version from content or levels that were in the 1999 original. Maybe then it's a good thing that I've never played the original Resident Evil 3, because at the time when it did come out, I was a Nintendo 64 gamer and only Resident Evil 2 released for the Nintendo 64. Resident Evil 3 never did. From a gameplay perspective, Resident Evil 3 Remake is still a Resident Evil game. Now, what I mean by that is that the levels and the design is very linear. A lot like how you would expect in an Uncharted game. Not necessarily Uncharted 4 because it's a little more open-ended, but more like the classic Uncharted levels where there's one way to get from point A to point B and you're expected to go along that route and there are action sequences along the way. Resident Evil 3 plays out like a zombie action movie, and that's great. It provides for a tremendous experience. Now, keep in mind, some of the people that have completed Resident Evil 3 are saying that they did speed runs in like 2.5–3 hours, and I can entirely see that as being realistic. I have never played Resident Evil 3, so I had no idea where I was supposed to go objectives. I was basically learning about these objectives as I went through the game this first time. And of course, my final playtime was just over 5.5 hours. So this Resident Evil 3 remake, is it worth the $60? It depends on how much you love Resident Evil. Now, I do love Resident Evil, so I felt it was worth the $60 just because it was such a tremendous experience. But for those of you who might be getting a little tired of the franchise, or you're more a fan of how long the original Resident Evil 3 was, you might not like the length of this one. So if you're skeptical about paying $60, just wait. This game isn't going anywhere, and you can probably pick it up on sale in a month or two. What are your thoughts about Resident Evil 3, particularly this remake? Feel free to leave them in the comments section below. Thank you so much for checking out my video. This is Steve Sterling with Sentinel 17 Gaming.